111 South Liberty Drive. Can you all hear us over there? Is the audio okay out there?
You have to speak into those mics closer.
Yeah, well, they're very sensitive, and I'm not, like I said, for new rooms, we're not sure how they're working. Thank you.
Were you taking questions for the last project? Because that was hard to hear.
No. That was that was a short presentation. They had to go in front of the ARB for some minor changes that were requested on that for the Architectural Review Board.
So no public input for that project?
No, it was just a short presentation. And that had already been approved, and it's just a color scheme change and some additional shrubbery, and they moved some parking from one side to the other side. That was the only.
And dropping the curves to the river?
Well, no, it's not dropping it to the river, it's moving it to the river. They moved it, it's no length of a parking space.
Does that impact flooding?
I'm sorry?
Does that impact flooding?
I'm sorry?
Does it impact flooding if it drops the curb and moves it closer to the
But
river?
it's not dropping the curb, it's just moving it
Right, I'm just using the
on a
word.
level plane. And that's something, I may defer to the engineer, but, this is.
I know, the flooding, you're just kind of, because the comment he used was drop curb 20 feet to the river. That's his wording. So just, if you could just please look into flooding for that.
No, if I may, Chairman.
Please.
So in one of the interior parking lots, he's expanding that parking lot 20 feet towards the river. The distance between that parking lot and the river is, I'm going to guess because it's been a while, is 100 feet. So between that parking lot, there's also a grass, there's also stormwater management, there's the walkway, and a wall. So it's not affecting the Hudson River, it's not affecting any stream course, it's not affecting basically anything in that area.
Okay, only because that's an area that does flood. Has flooded significantly.
This is up and beyond where the flood zone is on that property. They've been through this whole process with the flood zone and where the buildings are located.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Sorry about that. Good to see you.
Hello, everybody. My name is DeGennaro. I'm the civil engineer for the project from Brooker Engineering. My address is 74 Lafayette Avenue, Suffolk, New York. So we're here again before the planning board really to discuss the seeker process and the EAF Part 3. That's the document that has been prepared and first submitted in February of 2023 for your board to review the potential significant environmental impacts. The items that we had been continuously discussing really centered around the visual impacts of the actual structure itself. And again, the structure is a 4-story building from the front with commercial use on the ground floor, parking on the ground floor as well, parking garage, and 3 stories of residential units. And there are 86 units altogether, with I believe a 1 and 2 bedroom units, no 3 bedrooms. During the course of the discussion and the plan modification from your board and from the TAC committee, we have refined the architectural design, especially the facade along the front face. We introduced a 10-foot recess of the 4th floor along the front face to help bring down the scale of the building as it appears from Route 9W or Route Drive. We have updated our visual simulations to represent that. That's now part of the EAF Part 3. We hope that those plan modifications, in addition to lowering the building itself in terms of the finished floor elevation, bringing that down to a lower elevation from the previous iterations that have been provided. We trust that will address the board's concerns and provide the mitigation of potential significant adverse impacts with respect to the building contrast to the surrounding area. Additionally, we did perform a traffic impact study that was done by Hager, a licensed transportation engineer. That was submitted to the board for review and is included in the EAF Part 3. That has also been submitted to the DOT for their review. And the scope of work, the intersections that were part of that traffic impact study were coordinated with the DOT before it was done, of course. So all of the potential problem areas were identified. The report from Hager does say that there is no significant change in level of service in the surrounding intersections as defined or requested by the DOT. Those, obviously we still have to go before the zoning board of appeals for the variances that are required for this project. But for tonight's meeting, I think we definitely wanted to focus on the EAF Part 3 and potential significant adverse impacts and on mitigation.
All right, and the DOT got the traffic plan, right?
They did.
Or the traffic studies. How have we heard back their response yet? I don't think that was, okay. Max, do you have any questions or comments on?
So just to clarify where you are on the secret process, you have received a Part 3 environmental assessment form received by the applicant. Deals with the applicant's responses to all the potential impacts that were identified for the project. I think the one piece that's outstanding, as we discussed, is the traffic. So it would be my recommendation that either the applicant receives comment back from DOT, or that before you would consider negative, you would peer review the study that their traffic engineer prepared. The other item of interest that certainly seems to be of interest to the board is the impacts with community character. So we had remarked recently that the visuals that were provided, we thought that they should be amended because I don't think they accurately showed one of the building corners, if you remember. I think you did provide that correction from your architect, so these visuals do accurately represent what the structure is going to look like, but then that leads you to make the determination about whether or not that's going to be a significant impact. So that's really where you are, on all the impacts that were addressed. You have the applicant's response. If you agree with it, you can adopt the Part 3, but you don't have that traffic yet, so you can't really make that determination. On all the other impacts, you can make a determination if you need to.
Okay, and John, as far as the peer review of the traffic report, is that something you can?
Yes, it was submitted to
Okay.
DOT and to our office. We're currently reviewing it now.
Okay.
We'll have results, I'm hoping, before your next TAC meeting.
Okay. And date on that, Mary, do you know? Off the top of your head? Any of the board member have questions or comments for the applicant on this?
I just want to wait for the traffic report to come back.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to move forward without that.
We don't know if we also maybe want to look at getting one. Sorry. There's a maybe possibility of this all said and done, maybe we want to hire a consultant to do traffic review on our end.
You mean a totally separate study or just peer review of the one that they
Separate study, in our opinion. How they would feel about it, that's something we'll kick around, but trying to decide.
Well, once we get the peer review, is that something we get the peer review first and then move forward with a separate study, or?
I could ask our traffic guy his recommendations on that. Once he completes the review, he'll have a better idea if an independent third-time review is worth it, or he'll say, no, this is pretty standard, and not recommended.
Okay, so we'll wait the peer review and his recommendation from there. Okay. So we're kind of standing on the seeker at this point until we receive the results from or the commentary from DOT and the peer review of the traffic study. Right?
Certainly. Yes, we would definitely expect that. We do request, are there any other open issues in the board's opinion or consultant's opinion that you might feel that the EAF has not sufficiently addressed?
Well, I don't think the EAF addresses the size, and I'm sure others still have questions and concerns with the scale of the project.
Okay.
But like I said, that's not part of the EAF.
Okay.
Can I just have one question?
Yes.
Whatever happened to the cantilever by the end?
We did look at that with the architect, and it was a couple of different reasons. The cantilever just would obviously be very difficult to construct. And that would, the cantilever was discussed along the interior U-shaped courtyard on a north wing. And if we brought the fourth floor out, it would affect the sight lines and the windows of the other units, especially in the corner. And the actual construction of that would just be cost prohibitive.
But it would really make the building even smaller.
Which is why we provided the visual impact or the visual simulation from the north side and the increased vegetation and modified parking spaces in that area. And again, the thought process definitely was considered, and the thought process was that we offset the fourth floor in front of the building and the northeast corner of the building. As we are progressing towards the back of the building, towards the west of the building on that fourth floor, that's when we're kind of coming up to grade. So we're burying the first floor anyway. So it's really only looking like a 3-story building. And that's also set back so far into the property that the scale of the building from that perspective is already reduced because it's far back from 9W, from Washburn Lane, the key vantage points. That it could be done, anything could be done. But the return of that modification in terms of the aesthetics and visual impact was really considered to be novel, based on the negative impact to the available space and the apartment layout.
But you guys just decided that you're not going to meet it. You decided just that's how it's not going to work for you. It's not going to make it look significantly smaller, so we just ended it.
We can provide some documentation or a narrative response with to support that from the architect, if that would assist the board in being confident that fully evaluating potential alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see what it would look like, because the day we were talking about it a couple of meetings ago, it really sounded like a solution to make the building look smaller. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, are you okay? You got comments? Or,
Yeah, for the EAF, generally their layout didn't change. We've checked everything. And specifically on the stormwater management, their soil testing was better than they anticipated. So for the EAF purposes, I'm fine with their design. They'll probably go back and do some modifications to make those areas smaller, I'm assuming. But for the environmental impact, they've addressed a worst case scenario. So from that point of view, we have no additional comments.
okay. Do any board members have any additional comments?
I'm just waiting on traffic study. concerns on, and egresses, mostly, there's so much going on in that area, so that's what I'm doing right now.
And John Hager?
Can't hear. Can't hear. Speak into the mic.
He does not have any concerns.
All right, I have no concern.
I think that's all I got. Yeah, I think at this time we'll open the public hearing again and take comments from the residents. Okay. Sign in, state your name and address, please. And before we start the public hearing, let's try to limit this to about 3 minutes and keep it respectful and to the point and address the board, please.
My name is Chris Eachus. I'm a New York State Assemblyman, 99th District, which includes the beautiful town of Stony Point. I believe that 111 South Liberty Drive project proposal is what really is the definition of an abomination. There are so many things wrong with it. In 3 minutes, I can't cover it all. I will tell you this. That since I am with New York State, I will be sure that the DOT gets to the traffic study as quickly as possible. But I liked James's idea of an independent traffic study. Just traveling through that area, I have no clue how they're stating that there won't be any effect to the intersections in that area. I mean, even if there are 86, and they're not, but even if there were 86 one-room apartments to this, we know that that comes with couples. And usually they have 2 cars. So we're talking about over 150 cars that are added right in that specific area. You know, it was very nice, the setback that he was talking about, to give the illusion of 3 floors. But it is 4 floors. It is 4. And does our fire department have the equipment to fight that type of fire? Are they saying that they're going to pay for the equipment to fight that type of fire? No, because they're only concerned with one thing: profit. That's all they care about. This building, and I'm going to wrap it up real quick, but this building is just in total incongruence with that area. There, as we all know, there's no other 4-story buildings in that area. There is no indication of affordability for these new units. And the final thing is, I think from all the comments that you've heard already, and that you're going to hear, that nobody's going to speak up for this project except the persons who are going to make money from it. Please, do not approve this project.
Thank you very much.
Ronnie, 8 Michael Court, here in Stony Point.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
And please sign in.
The same thing. I'm sorry?
Please sign in.
I will. I'm trying to right now. I want to make sure I got my time.
Not yet. I haven't started.
We have a situation here that everybody, somebody on this board just said, I have no concerns. And that concerns me.
At this time,
Okay.
that's no concern. So
That's a concern to me. This
I
was-
want to get clear, I'm not a board member, I'm sitting up here with the board, but I'm not a
But you're
board
an
member.
influencer, so.
I'm not an
And of
influencer.
course you are. If you're not an influencer, why are you doing it? I am respectful. You said he's got no ability, he's not a board member. It doesn't matter. Bottom line here is this. Somebody said that, and there should be a concern was when this was first introduced. And I would love to take a poll at this time, who thinks that this is an acceptable project for our community? And I don't expect any hands.
I'll give you an answer.
Please.
Right now, let's be clear, to understand how projects come in front of planning boards. It's by local codes that were passed by the town board. This project got its infancy and its birth because of the codes that are on the books. The board's responsibility is to work within the local codes that are put in front of them when an applicant comes forward. Whether we like the project or not, we have to make sure that we follow the local codes so we don't get this town in litigation. To ask the opinion of an individual at this time as the project is still moving forward would be very difficult to answer because there's still a lot of things that need to be answered. But to be clear, because it's been a little bug for me, everybody has to understand very clearly the local law gave this, and it's not a blame on the town board, they did what they had to do at the time. These codes and laws were passed umpteen years ago. But before people speak, they should understand how it got here first. It's very, very, very important to understand how this project got here. And we love the fact that people are here and talking, but they also have to understand how it got here. So that's what's important. So it shows we are concerned, we do care, but to get an opinion now when the process is even near done would be very difficult to give you. And our answer will be our vote when we come to it.
And I appreciate your answer.
No,
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, we're still talking about variances. Why are they even on the board? We should just completely shut down variances. Number one. Number two, our official said that the 4-story building, no, it does not belong here. We have a beautiful project right next door that's within the limit. It looks wonderful. It fits into the character of our community. And that's what we need to maintain, is the character of our community. And I know everybody behind me, whether they speak tonight or not, is not in favor of this project. And I said, the only reason why we're here is because they're looking to make money. I don't care about his money. I'm a businessman. I need to maximize my profits. I don't care about his profits on the back of this community. Now I'll sign out.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see it behind the board. Come on up.
Tracy Cataldo, 34 Nordica Circle. I want to express my gratitude to the planning board for their dedicated time and attention to this matter. However, I cannot emphasize enough that I would request that you reject the applicant's request outright. There should be absolutely no consideration given to granting any conditional use permits or variances to this applicant for the current state of the proposal. The audacious plan to construct a colossal 4-story, 86-unit apartment building, a structure that rivals the height of the Palisade Sound Wall on the main thoroughfare of our beloved town, is nothing short of disastrous. To me, it's a bad faith proposal. If this monstrosity is allowed to be erected, it will irreversibly obliterate the essence and heritage of our town, leaving an indelible scar on its very core. The charm and character that define the uniqueness and allure of our beautiful town will be eroded, and the distinct footprint that has shaped our community will forever be lost.
So I went back and read all the transcripts from as far back as I could find them. And I was surprised to find that almost every one of you on the planning board from day one have expressed concerns about the size of this project. Way back a year ago in the June meeting, Chairman Johnson said, yeah, I think personally it's way too much structure on way too little property. At the September 22nd meeting, Board Member Jaslow said, you look at the fabric of Stony Point and this proposal just doesn't fit in. It's like you're trying to cram something in, and it's like you're trying to fit a building in that doesn't fit the area. Board Member Rogers kicks in and says, it's located in, it sets a precedent. It's a very large structure. How do we as a board feel about as far as, you know, it's going to be quite big. Chairman Johnson agrees. It's too big for the footprint, I think. Board Member Purcell, nobody wants to look at a giant eyesore. You want to be able to conform to the natural setting that's already existing. Everything should conform to what's already existing in the town. Beal and Johnson continue to express concerns about the size. Everybody's just scared of the size of this thing right now. Johnson, yeah, I think that's, well, like I said, that's the big thing, it's still the big thing. In March, Board Member Jaslow repeats the same concerns he had in September. I really feel that like the building doesn't fit, and what you're proposing doesn't fit into the town. And you know what kind of would stick out like a sore thumb, and something like, if you look at our town, nothing's like that. Board Member Beal supports Jaslow, saying the building is massive. Then in April of this year, Board Member Jaslow again says, I mean, it just doesn't look like Stony Point and feel like Stony Point. The other board members join in, repeating their concerns about the size of the project. Board Member Alessi says, my thoughts are just to echo what Jim and Eric were saying. My concern is just the overall size. Chairman Johnson says the consensus and the main complaint is just the massive size. Board Member Jaslow just says huge, huge, and it ends with Board Member Beal saying massive. So you folks on the planning board have the same concerns as the Rockland County Planning Department did when they disapproved this proposal for the change in zoning unanimously. The same concerns that all the residents of this room have. The project is too big, it's too massive, it doesn't fit in with the character of the town. So why grant conditional use to this developer? Developers are out to maximize their profits, that's what they do. But our planning board and zoning board are here to protect us from projects and developments that don't belong in Stony Point. Vote it down. You've done your due diligence. You've followed all the regulations. If it leads to litigation, so be it. We, the residents, will stand with you.
Please. Oh, not to the signage.
You take that too?
Okay, we'll find it.
You need a pen?
I have a pen, but not a sheet. So I have a sheet.
Read that.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Ellie Kastner, and I live on West Shore Drive in Tompkins Cove. It may seem like you're hearing the same sentiments over and over, not just tonight, but at the town board meeting and at the zoning board meeting. We're frustrated with last-minute cancellations and location changes, sometimes virtually non-communication by the town board. But it also seems like Stony Pointers have come out against multiple projects in a row with similar sentiments. And this isn't a coincidence, and it isn't a fault of the townspeople, like those who have shown up here tonight to engage in our civic duty. The project at 111 South Liberty Drive brings into focus our lack of a real plan for the future of Stony Point. The Stony Point land use plan is almost 30 years old, which according to expert planners at the county level is extremely antiquated. In fact, last year, this planning board in September, in the minutes, itself questions the age and effectiveness of the master plan. Furthermore, the Rockland County Planning Department has written multiple letters against this specific project based on its issues with its quote-unquote massive scale. What I'm concerned about is that, with all respect to you, that just the mechanics of the board, as an appointed board, can override the county critiques and comments with a simple supermajority. We're asking tonight that with the respect and the care that you put and bring to the table, to stand with us as Stony Pointers, as you all are yourselves, and reject, I know the variances aren't up on the table here, but stand with the zoning board, and besides just having these open hearings for the sake of having them, for the formality of it, truly hear us as the people of Stony Point coming out in extreme numbers to say that this project doesn't work well for us and it's only working for the developers. Thank you.
Leave it up there.
First, good evening. Thank you for having this meeting. This
Will you
building.
give us your...
Oh, sorry. Deirdre O'Connor, Cross Creek Lane, Stony Point. Grew up in Haverstraw and live in Stony Point and raised my children here. First, I want to thank you for having this meeting. This building in itself is really a testament to what the community members wanted, came out and spoke for, and that you guys, the town, all became part of as a collective initiative to make it happen. So, and ensure that we maintained our golf course. So that's amazing. What I want to talk about is I am concerned that the priority of both these major projects, and I did attend the meetings for the other project as well, especially during COVID when it was Zoom, we did Zoom, that the priority seems to be the aesthetics and not the safety. Now, a comprehensive plan would really help to identify all the laws on zoning and for safety reasons, as well as demographic reports, traffic reports, infrastructure, engineers, goals, essential questions that would identify 5 years, 10 years, and the next 30 years. So that way projects we wouldn't be looking at them in a myopic form, but rather a whole form and collecting it. So also, when we talk about laws, I know that was mentioned, there's the local laws, there's the state laws, there's the federal laws, and the county laws. So state trumps local, and federal looks pretty much trumps it all. And there are significant and rigorous rules that have to go with safety and evacuating planning. So for example, the last builder spoke about, moving the curb 20 feet down and talking about landscaping, which I felt was more of a deflection than the actual real issue. And then we spoke about, that the gentleman of the board mentioned how the flooding is no longer there, but it's up further. Okay, well now we're adding another high capacity project next to schools, and we have to evaluate how does this impact our fire departments, our police departments, our schools, our infrastructure, our traffic, our environment, and our animals. And so I'm really asking that we just take a step back before we say yay or nay to any of these projects, and that we work with the school superintendent, the police chief, the town engineers, the lawyers, the finance department, the environmentalists, the board members, the mayors, federal people that can get involved and help. That's all free resources to the town as well. And we create that comprehensive plan that identifies what we want as a community for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and then evaluate it every year. Are we meeting goals? Are we working towards that progress? And what can we do with accountability measures to ensure that we do, and then to revise it when needed. So I think that we just need to take a step back before we really overdo and can't undo what's been done and put the residents and children in schools and buses that have to get out when there are emergencies and flooding that we can't get to them or the residents or the community, and we put first responders' lives in jeopardy as well. So I'm just asking that you please, let's do the comprehensive plan, strategic plan first, okay? If that's something that the board would consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Deirdre, just to be very clear, you made a bold statement about how federal, state, and county trump local laws. It's not true. Oh, let me finish.
Okay.
Former mayor with 8 years of experience. Local law is very important. Home rule is very important. That's why we have these boards. That's why we have these consultants to protect, pass laws to protect the community. Federal law doesn't trump everybody what locally they want to do and what you want to see go in the community. So yes, there are agencies we have to deal with. Municipalities have to deal with it. You're talking about a comprehensive plan. It's a great idea. We should review it every year. It should be done in any municipality.
By law, yes, mostly by state, by state law.
But the comments you talk about that should be directed towards the town board. Understanding that they need to move forward. They're the ones that make the decision moving forward with comprehensive plans. We all understand that. As I mentioned earlier, the boards, the zoning boards, and planning boards only work with whatever the local municipality, the town board makes for local law. So I appreciate it. Been there, done that. It's a long process. It needs to be done. Reviews need to happen. But that needs to be addressed at the town board. This board understands that, but we only work with what's given to us. And home rule is critical. Because if we don't protect home rule, when we talk about the town board making local laws to protect what they have, and we let the federal government tell us what to do, we're ruined. So home rule is important, but to make a statement that federal laws trump everything, it's not true.
Federal laws do trump when it comes into health, safety, and emergency evacuation. Federal laws do trump. It's the same thing with the school system. So if the town puts in projects and doesn't do the due diligence, and there are flooding issues, because federal law is the ones that are going to have to come in, and it's going to have to fund the FEMA, they're going to have to come in and fund all the projects.
That happens on a daily basis. That's what our consultants do on any project.
Right, but federal law, when it comes to health and safety and Constitution in New York State and the 14th Amendment, to ensure that all those have the right to live in environments that are safe, then federal law does trump all
That's
those
what
laws.
our consultants do.
Right.
We understand those
Right.
laws, and we work with that. We have to make sure we abide by those.
Right.
But when it comes to building and stuff,
Supposed to be listening, not lecturing them.
I'm not lecturing stuff. You are. No, I'm trying to educate the public. I'm talking to Deirdre. I'm talking to Deirdre. I'm trying to educate the public and know what boards go through, and that town boards and village boards are the ones that make those decisions. What Deirdre's talking about is very, very important. It's extremely important. Reviews of comprehensive plan should be done, in my opinion, every 6 months, not every year, because things change so fast. But local home rule is critical to our survival. So I don't want people thinking that federal law can tell us what to do. Is health and safety stuff? Yeah, that's all incorporated. That's what our consultants do. That's what our lawyers do to make sure exactly what she's talking about is incorporated. It's important.
Right.
But the town board needs to, any town board meeting, not just this one, needs to do exactly what you're talking about.
I'll give you an example. Root-Law, for example, has been implemented incorrectly
Correct.
by lots of towns.
No, I'm just
This
trying
is not the
to, no, I know, I agree with a little conversation, wanted to make it clear.
I'll follow.
Absolutely.
All right? Have a good evening.
Thank you,
very
Deirdre.
much. Appreciate it. Gentleman is here.
Good evening, board. I'm going to sign in here. My name is Angel Rosado, a resident of 14 Wiles Drive, Stony Point, New York. So 14 Wiles Drive is approximately 1,500 feet away from where this project is at. I had the pleasure and honor of buying into this community about 3 years ago. My real estate agent is actually out there in Cabo, New York, thanks to her. And we saw 24 homes before we decided on Stony Point being our town. And what made Stony Point our town was that it had character. Like Mr. Johnson said, EF3 doesn't talk about character. On my way here, my wife said, maybe we don't put a pool in next year if we're not going to be here a long time, because this project doesn't fit into the character that we bought into. So it's not about this project only, it's about the next project. If a variance is granted to this one, that means the next one's around the corner. And it's not about what's going to happen, right? These developers, they're doing their job, but I think the board and the community is on one side. It's not us against the developers, it's us protecting our town, and I think we all want that. And not saying that a big building is going to bring danger, but I came from the Bronx, where every building is big. And guess what? We need a lot more cops out there in the Bronx because there's so many more people.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when you bring 80 families into this town? The first thing I realized the first year I moved into this community, is that you stay away from 9W between March and August, because those bikers are annoying. What do you think is going to happen with 80 more families who may have 2 vehicles per apartment in a location that doesn't even have enough spaces for them? It's going to spill into my neighborhood, into where I live. I don't want to feel unsafe walking with my son around the neighborhood. That's one of the best things I can do. I can send my son to walk around and get some fresh air without the worry that there's a stranger in this 80 apartment complex, because I know my neighbors. I know Danny, I know Rob, I know Dave, because they're family. I know these people. In the Bronx, I didn't know a damn person because you're just another number. But here, everyone is a person, and this project doesn't fit with the character that we call Stony Point. And you're not only affecting us now, you're affecting your kids, because guess what? This project is the first fabric. Then there's another one. Then there's another one. And before you know it, 30 years down the line, the property that you worked your ass off on, excuse my language, the property that you killed yourself for, the property that I moved with my mother-in-law for a year to save for, will not be worth the same, because we had the same property. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm David Evangelista from 54 Wilderness Drive in Stony Point. I have been a lifelong resident of Stony Point. I understand the character and the town and how where it came from and where it's gone. I'm from Stony Point. I'm a fairly simple person. I like facts, documentation, and procedure. Okay? So I have a couple questions for you, and I want to point out a couple things I've read that are facts, because the county put them in writing, they're not concerned about. But I also want to point out something that came up tonight. This idea about, I understand you can't not approve something if it meets the code, if it meets the regs. But when you have this many citizens coming out in opposition, and you have more, probably it's a summer night, so probably more, and you're a member of this board, you should be looking at every opportunity to use anything that is contrary to the regulation to vote against the project, right? That's your out. They have every right to come, they have every right to ask, but if there's one item left that you can vote against, then you should do it as that's what the residents of the town want that you're representing. But with that said, I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused by a couple things. Even when the meeting started off, I understand you let Eagle Bay go first because they were here waiting, but I didn't understand what happened when this project presented looking for an approval. Whatever that was, no one in the room understood, wasn't on the agenda. There was no action item on the agenda tonight for them seeking an approval. So what exactly was that? And the reason I'm bringing it up is there's this conditional use term versus something in front of the planning board. And I think maybe the public needs somebody, whether it be counsel or your consultant, to explain what is the difference between conditional use or just a planning approval. Is there a difference? What does it mean? What does one mean versus the other? Because I'm looking at the code for conditional use, and it seems to give the board a lot of latitude and flexibility on how you can not approve a project, irrespective of what's in the code. It actually says, conditional uses are by definition subject to a higher standard of review. And it goes on. The general conditions for conditional uses are as follows. And it talks about reasons such as the project is just not in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is. Right? The location, the size, and size of such use, it doesn't fit. The location and height of the buildings will not hinder, that those cannot hinder or discourage the development use of adjacent land and buildings. Right? And it goes on, there's 4 right here on this handout that somebody left on the seats tonight. I didn't have this as part of my presentation, but here on a platter are ways you can not approve this project without violating the law. And as Pete said, if you have the ability to do it, the town will stand behind you, because I think everyone here and obviously is opposed to the project, like somebody said earlier. With that said, I did read the county's letters, March 21 to the planning board, July 5th to the zoning board, and I do have some concerns when the county comes back with a letter on first page that says, disapprove in bold italics, and has 2 major reasons to disapprove. Well, I could hold myself up and stand behind the county. Then they go on with another, if you count the 2 subsections of 1 bullet, there's 32 other worries they have on the project. That's a lot of things to overcome. But if you look at the things they want to overcome, it talks about this massive use. It talks about this, the size and the structures. It goes on about all the concerns. But some of the ones that bothered me a little bit was this recreational space, this 10 by 20 per unit recreational space. And just to put that in proportion for people who know it's coming to be football season, that's 7 yards by 3 yards roughly. Okay? Picture that. 7 yards, that's 7 steps by 3 steps roughly per unit. Now this is recreational use space, and the project is asking the planning board to consider the balconies on the units to count for this recreational space. Well, what am I doing in 20 by 10 feet for recreation? Isn't the whole intent of this recreational use to have an area where you can go out and do something? The whole idea is to have an area that's public or common to the building, so people can go out and do play catch with their kids, walk their dog, take a little stretch, do some yoga. If you count each of the 86 balconies to get to 200 feet per unit, and a little bit on the roof, 20 by 10 on the roof, how is that really recreational space meeting the intent of the law? Right? It doesn't. All these little things, and I can go on and on through these documents. The county planning board wrote basically the same stuff to the zoning board as they wrote to you back in March. But you can go through each of these items, and if I'm looking at the conditional use stuff, I can say, they just don't fit. And if it doesn't fit, as Nancy Reagan told the country, just say no. And I'll leave it.
Thank you very much. George? Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. My name is George Patanovic. I live at 597 Old Gate Hill Road in Stony Point, and I'm president of SPACE, the Stony Point Action Committee for the Environment. I have a letter that I prepared. They do get a copy of tomorrow, written comments, but I'd like to read the letter for your benefit tonight to listen to the comments. I spent a bit of time on it, so it might take a few more than 3 minutes. And also for the benefit of the public who may not see the letter, I'd like to have a chance for the public to hear the concerns that we've identified from a lot of the documents we've foiled from the town concerning this project. So we submit the following comments for your consideration. In its letter dated July 5th, 2023, the Rockland County Department of Planning noted that the greatest allowed floor area, the FAR, is 4.0, and the applicant for 11 South Liberty Drive is proposing 6.3 FAR, which far exceeds every use permitted in the BU district, the BU zoning district currently. Number 2, the Rockland County Department of Planning also described this proposed building as being oversized and massive in scale, especially when looked at in the context of the surrounding site.
Number 3, it is difficult for the town's existing infrastructure to accommodate a mixed-use building with significant residential density, and we must consider the cumulative impacts on local roads, stormwater impacts, and on the existing sewer that can become overburdened. Number 4, we agree with the Rockland County Department of Health request that the applicant submit a downstream sewer capacity analysis. It should be based on the planned development impacts currently on our sewer capacity, those that have been approved and those that have not yet been built. Number 5, due to the size and scale of this project as proposed, SPACE agrees with and supports the Rockland County Commissioner and the Department of Planning's unanimous vote to recommend disapproval of the site plan and conditional use permit requested for 11 South Liberty Drive. We urge the Stony Point Planning Board and Stony Point Zoning Board of Appeals to accept the Rockland County recommendations to deny the proposed site plan and the requested variances. SPACE suggests that approval of the current site plan and zoning variances is not in compliance with the intent and purpose of the conditional use permit and set a bad precedent for the town. Number 6, prior to approving any conditional use, the planning board shall determine the conformity of such use and proposed development with the town of Stony Point's conditional use general regulations and standards in the town zoning code. That's section 21579 and 21592. At the minimum requirement for that usage. And in 21579, in general requirements, it says in the code, the proposed use shall be of such location, size, and character that will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed and be situated and shall not be detrimental to the site or adjacent properties in accordance with the zoning classification of such properties. Our comment on that is the Rockland County Department of Planning characteristics. Development of this oversized, it considers it to be oversized in a massive structure, and due to the size and scale of an overdevelopment of the site. That's what they put in their comments to you. And B, the location, the size of such use, and nature and intensity of operations involved or conducted in connection therewith, its site layout and its relation to access streets shall be such that both pedestrian and vehicular traffic from its use and assembly of persons in connection will not be hazardous. So the comment is the New York State Department of Transportation in its letter dated March 21st, it was mentioned tonight, and the Rockland County Department of Highways requested that an applicant provide a traffic study. So the traffic study should really be available for us, I think, at this public hearing, so we have something to base our comments on. That's a significant issue, traffic. And here we're having a public hearing, we don't have a traffic study to see. Surrounding traffic infrastructure, SPACE suggests that the applicant pay for and the town hire an independent traffic person, as was suggested by Mr. Purcell, engineering firm to conduct the study. We can't just have the applicant hire a traffic study. I mean, we should have an independent study done. And then, as your question was, Mr. Johnson, they go to the state. Both studies or both reviews go to the state. Let the state transportation figure out what they believe is to be the correct information. There's an applicant who's going to hire. They're paying for the traffic study. Who knows what kind of interest we're going to get in that traffic study? I think it's important for the town to have an independent traffic study so we get confidence in the facts that are being presented in that traffic study. In C, the location and height of buildings and location, nature to the height of walls, fences, and nature to the extent of landscaping on the site shall be that the use will not hinder or discourage development and use of the adjacent buildings. The comment here is the applicant is requesting a third variance for the height of a proposed 8-foot retaining wall. The proposed use will not require such additional public facilities or services to create such physical burdens on the town, greater than those characteristics uses permitted by right. Okay, that's a question as to whether that's going to pass school costs onto us, traffic costs, road widening, who knows what kind of costs we could end up paying for as residents as a result of this project. Section 21592 is the conditional use and special permit standards. A parking requirement of 2 parking spaces per residential unit is required, okay? And it goes on to describe what that is. The comment is the applicant does not have sufficient space to provide 2 parking spaces per unit as proposed and they're requesting variances from the town zoning board. The applicant purchased a property knowing the permitted use for parking requirements of the code. The request for variances is an indication of overdevelopment of the site. The request for variances is a self-created hardship and should be denied. I realize this board is not making that decision, but the zoning board is looking at where you're doing and you're looking at what they're doing. The zoning board should not give the variances. We're under no obligation to give variances for a piece of property. The developer should build within the current code and not be asking for variances. Number D. Yes.
Summarize?
Yeah, well, I want to finish. I really do. At the least, there's supposed to be 200 square feet of unpaid outdoor recreational space, as was mentioned. How does that provide extra recreational space on the roof? And whether that requirement for outdoor space as outlined in town code required for a conditional permit. Okay. As mentioned earlier, the applicant's request for the FAR. Okay. It seems that 111 South Drive, as proposed, does not conform with the Stony Point conditional use regulations and standards, at the minimum standards that are being requested for such usage, and therefore the request to the planning board, would you make that decision to grant a conditional use permit should be denied? Get back to the answer. Number 8, full environmental assessment form, which we were saying we want to talk about tonight. The comment on the full environmental assessment form is the EAF Part 1 and page 3 talks about in the use permitted or allowed by a special or conditional permit. The answer is yes. Okay. Is it a use that's allowed by a conditional permit? Well, I guess it's allowed if you approve it. In the EAF, it's not saying that you have approved it. I understand. The EAF Part 1 and Part 2 says the details identify a wall being requested. The wall that the variance is being asked for is 8 foot by 120 feet. We're talking about a significant sized wall. The EAF Part 1 and 4.
I don't want to cut you off, but we're trying to limit.
I have 2 more pieces to say, that's all.
People as possible.
I understand.
And we're running up against the wall.
Okay.
Other applicants on the agenda.
Okay, so one of the questions, this is important, okay, one of the questions that's asked in the EAF is underground, it's not groundwater, okay, that is the surface water. It says in the EAF, part 1, that the surface water is only 2 feet below the surface. And yet, I believe, if I'm understanding it right, the applicant is asking for excavation to put parking underneath, if that's true, or to bring the building down. Isn't that going to interfere with 2 feet of surface water that's only 2 feet below the surface? That's what it says in the EAF. And it also says in the EAF that there won't be excavation, but now it seems that there is going to be excavation in the EAF. George.
We really do.
Okay, I appreciate your consideration. Go ahead and write in the morning. Thank you
very much. Thank you, George. The fact that we've got 6 other applicants on the agenda this evening, we're going to continue the public hearing for next month's planning board. They're always welcome to put in the written comments as well. But we're going to postpone the public hearing for 111 South Liberty until next month's meeting. All right? Thank you.
What's the date?
I think I might be the last speaker.
Hello, my name is Greg Julian, and I live in Tompkins Cove, 15 Ridgetop Drive.
Can we keep it to 3 minutes?
I respect the 3 minute limit, even though it's unconstitutional. My profession is a political scientist. As such, for 46 years I've been in Rockland County looking at government and participating in government. Mr. Purcell is correct that home rule is really the basis of government in New York, but that home rule specifically is empowering the 57 counties and 5 boroughs to be the conduit of home rule, and the other parts of government, villages, boroughs, cities, work through the home rule grant to the county. We had a board of supervisors in Rockland County that had 5 towns. That was the way county government was created. I think that 1982, I worked on the developing the laws of how Rockland County was going to run. But very unique in this is that the refusal of the town supervisors, who are the governance of the county, to give the county the authority to actually make rules. So Rockland County was stuck that we would hire incredibly professional people, the planning board commissioner, who's trained to teach us and talk to us and have us adhere to the law, but it doesn't have legitimacy on the towns because the political power of this county rests with the towns. So the best advice that we have gotten, the damn thing is too big, we can not listen to because it was the original intent of this county to keep the town stronger, even though we spend our tax dollars to get benefits from people like Doug Sturts, who consistently has come before this board in opinions saying that you're out of order. Took bid on. What did we do? Our supervisor ignored it. He didn't follow through. We got Eagle Nest, whatever
Eagle Bay.
whatever it is. We can undo the bad things that have happened. Try not to be political on this one. It's not political. It's civic engagement. This is civic engagement. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. It's Stony Point United. Stony Point United to do the right thing and create a public.
All right, as I said, that's going to conclude the public hearing for One Eleven South. We'll do the evening and is that?
Make a motion.
I got a motion. A second. A motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right.